Okay, hi Kay, how are you?
Good. Happy to be here with you.
Thank you for coming on the show. It's nice to have you here.
You're, you're welcome.
So you've got a book coming out. Looks like your people said late June. Is that right?
Well, that's what we were hoping. Just yesterday, I got word that it's going to be about July 20th.
Oh, so late July. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well,
Surprise.
surprise. Well, the title is A Happy Life at a Happy Weight, and the subtitle is Creating a Shame-Free, Healthy Relationship with Food and Life. I got a kick out of the subtitle because I'm still working on my relationship with life, but my relationship with food I've had down for a long time, and I
Okay.
don't know if that's
Well,
good or bad because I am overweight, like many of us in the United States. And before we dive into the specifics of the book, though, can we just talk about obesity generally speaking? and
sure.
and specifically to the United States. I've done a lot of traveling outside of this country. I've lived out of the country for several years,
Hmm.
and every time I come back to the United States, it's the first thing I see when I get off the plane is how large people are here. And
Mhm.
why is that? Why are we the fat country?
We are the fattest
The
country.
fattest country,
Yes.
yeah.
Other countries are catching up with us, but why it is it's really several reasons. The environment, our food environment. We've got. I don't know if you remember a time when food was relatively expensive relationship to income, but now we're just flooded with cheap food and processed food, and it's full of sugar, fat, salt. And so we like it and we go for it. And we've got lots of advertising to encourage us. And the food industry is very clever with making it taste extra good. So that's one factor. And then the second factor is we barely have to move at all to function. In fact, many of us are at our computers for hours and hours and just do very little except sit in front of devices. So, way back in the day, people were farmers or they were hunter gatherers. So we're made to move and we don't have to move anymore. So you've got two big things, that are going against. In fact, you really are going against the tide if you want to be normal weight, so to speak, because 75% of Americans are overweight or obese. And it is a disease. There are 40 medical conditions associated with obesity. So it is a health issue. And for a lot of other people, it's an emotional issue, it's an image issue. But the deck is stacked against us. Let me just put it that way.
Okay. Do you think that all of the processed foods sort of really took off after World War II? Because I've read things where after the war, women started to go to work and had less time to prepare food the way that their mothers did and their grandmothers did, where it was all natural food and go shopping every day. And then you had all of the Swanson TV dinners coming out loaded with preservatives. And that was the sort of the start of it. Do you think that's accurate?
Well, I think it's a good observation. So things were changing, but it was really more like in the 1960s that things really started, obesity rates really started going up, and they've continued to go up, and they are continuing to go up. So it's at least a 40 to 50-year trend, but I don't think I think that was when the tide was turning, but I don't really think I can't remember when I was really young in the 60s, almost nobody was overweight. And if you go back and look at the newspaper articles, pictures in the newspaper from that era, it was very rare for people to be overweight.
Yeah, and now you said 75% in the United States?
Right. Yeah. So it's, virtually only 25% of Americans aren't overweight or obese. So that's another way to look at it.
Is preservatives in processed food, is that like if you just got rid of that part of your diet, would you automatically lose weight? or not necessarily?
No, because we're eating much more. We're eating much more than we used to eat, and we're very much less active. So it's not just some key ingredient if we only took that out. Just look at the plate sizes. They've gotten bigger and bigger. And if you look at what they serve in, actually, when restaurants, they're getting platter size when they come out to serve. And the stores, you can see the cartons are getting bigger and bigger. And the warehouse stores, people, I know somebody who goes to one of these warehouse stores, and they're a single person, but they buy a whole crate of blueberries. Blueberries are good food, but we just are buying large quantities because it's cheap.
So specifically with your book, what's the key takeaways? Because there's lots and lots of weight loss books, diet books, healthier lifestyle books. What makes yours unique?
Yeah, what is very different? My whole approach is very different. It's not a diet. In fact, I believe that dieting makes things worse. And so what it starts with, what's really important to me about this is that, particularly, especially for women, food and shame go together. And so I'm talking about that connection between food and shame and how to heal that connection. So I have three things that are especially important to me that I'm conveying in the book. And one is the origin of that shame. And so that can come from trauma. That's something that I experienced. It also can come from your family of origin. And that really happens with everybody. Now, when you're born, you're exuberant, you're energetic, you are full of questions as you begin to talk, you're full of curiosity. And then you start hearing these messages to tone it down. We don't do this in our household. So, it's kind of lower your voice, or cues like take your elbow off the table. Sometimes it's not so subtle, like it's sit down and shut up. And so it's cues that like get your elbows off the table, which I remember hearing from parents and grandparents that say it's not really safe to be me. And so what do? We sit down, we shut up, and we eat. So instead of being who we truly are with all of those gifts and curiosity, we kind of start shutting down. And so that's very unfortunate. And then the third root of that kind of shame is really about body image and social norms. And particularly for women, I think that is a big issue. The idea of you can never be too thin or too rich. I think the too thin part more applies to women. And I mean, you see it all the time in whether it's magazines or elsewhere in the media. And I will never forget, one day I was watching something. I was watching a picture of Michelle Obama when she was First Lady, and they were showing a little bump on her stomach. And I mean, the woman must have just had lunch. She is and was an example of a very healthy and fit person. But the social norm is for women to be gaunt. And in fact, that leads to shame. So so what I see is there are things that happened in our past that may set us up for this issue, and of connecting, of eating for comfort, even eating, because we're stressed, eating for all kinds of reasons. And that's really the second point that is so important to me in the book, and is about where does emotional eating start. And with my client, Katie, well, it started when she was a little girl, and in her family, it was like conflict avoidance. So they were afraid that conflict would happen and arguments would, come forth, explode. And so there were messages of like, just keep things under wraps. Don't bring things up. And so she really suppressed her emotions because she was really an outgoing kid. And so when she came to see me, though, she was in her 40s, and she was a professional. She worked all day, she commuted, she made dinner for her family. And when she served dinner, there was no conversation. They didn't even thank her. They just ate and got up and left. And so she was there by herself, and she turned on the TV, and she was lonely. I mean, that trend started when she was a kid, and then it continued when she was an adult. So what did she do? The trigger was when she turned on the TV. She started with 3 beers, ate a bag of potato chips, and then a bowl of ice cream. And those were her cravings. And so from there, I actually worked with her to overcome this routine that she had, because before she was continuing to gain weight, and she was able to break out of that routine, and then she started losing weight. And what I helped her with was the 5 steps to stop being controlled by food. And that is the third very important idea and tool that I bring to my readers with this new book, A Happy Life at a Healthy Weight. And so these 5 steps are something that I would, be happy to share with you if that's of interest.
Well, we only have about 4 minutes left, so I want to just hit on something that you said about being controlled by food.
Yeah.
It seems to me that that's kind of built into our culture, because we have particular times of the day where we have breakfast, lunch, dinner, and I know in England they have 4 meals with tea, and we're all just conditioned to, it's 8 o'clock, it's 9 o'clock, I got to eat breakfast, rather than I should eat when I'm hungry and not when it's the right time on the clock. Do you think that's contributing to obesity as well?
I am not so sure. In fact, when I visited in France, they said, you Americans snack all the time. We just eat at certain times. And at that time, they were much less prone to weight gain. Now that they have fast foods and there more people are gaining weight. But I think actually it's just the opposite. The people are skipping meals because they're working all day. So they come home, they may not have had much of anything to eat, and it's 6 o'clock at night and they're ravenously hungry. So they eat everything in sight. And I think the data I've looked at is skipping meals is really associated with being sicker and actually greater mortality. So it's what you eat and it's how much you eat, I think is really the core issue. Not being hungry is a good signal, though, for, let's say, after meal eating. We eat and then suddenly we're bored, so we want to eat some more. That's a great time to ask, am I hungry? Am I really hungry? Or am I just eating because I'm bored, because I'm stressed, I want some relief? So it's kind of a yes and no answer.
Well, one thing about France that I liked was they ate their big meal at noon rather than at 7 o'clock at night. And you would have a small snack at that hour. And I tend to eat that way. I tend to eat my large meal right in the middle of the day, because with my schedule I can do that. And
yes.
I find that it's much better going to bed not completely bloated.
Yes. Yeah, it's a very good practice. If people can do that, to have their bigger meal in the day, because that's kind of the opposite what most people are doing. They're just cramming every calorie very shortly before they go to bed. And then while they're sleeping, their metabolism is not revved up by any means.
Have you published other books, or is this your first one?
This is my first book,
okay.
And this is really my life's work. And because I actually have a private practice, I have had a private practice for 12 years. So I really have brought everything together in this book it's a how-to guide. It's how to help people really remove those inner obstacles. And there are many inner obstacles to losing weight, things like perfectionism, mindset, people pleasing, not making yourself a priority. So this is a comprehensive lifestyle change approach. And so I address both the inner and the outer roadblocks. So it's really, it's meant to be used. It's not one of those books that's meant to be read and say, oh, isn't that nice? It's actually got exercise is in it, and way you assess what you're doing and what your problems are. So I hope people will actually be able to use it to have that happy life at a healthy weight and have that healthy relationship with food.
Okay, I think on that we're going to have to wind this down. Again, the book is called A Happy Life at a Healthy Weight, and you said that it should be released, fingers crossed, at the end of July sometime, yeah?
Yes, I hope by July 20th.
Okay. Last question, do you have a website that you want to give out?
Yes, thank you for asking that. It's called sweetlifewellness.com. It's www.sweetlifewellness.com.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for coming on the show. It was nice meeting you, and best of luck with your book launch. Hope it does well.
Thank you, Douglas.